Who can agree that there's very little more vile than political parties in South Africa, especially those represented in Parliament? Why
Yeah,
are you
exactly.
laughing?
Well, it is funny because what they want is more money without you knowing where it's coming from. Let's just put it blunt.
Okay, so they are actually extremely desperate. We'll read snippets from
They
news.
are chopping off right
They
now.
are.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say that in English. Politely, that is.
Yes.
They're basically begging, saying that they need the threshold made higher and they need the limit made higher so
Yeah,
that they can operate. It costs millions and millions of rands to operate, apparently, according to political parties. And yeah, we are, as taxpayers, just giving them money freely. I think it's extremely important that everyone gets involved in talking about this on your own personal Twitter, on your own personal
absolutely.
Facebook, whatever social media platform that you have. So let me just give a little bit of history. Maybe you can fill in as well.
Yeah.
A few years ago, the Political Party Funding Act was brought forth. It never existed before, so it's a very new act. And in this act, it says that if a party receives a donation, 100,000 Rand or higher, they need to declare that donation. And the donor themselves also have to declare it. And you can go find that information on the IEC's website. Also, any political party can't receive more than 15 million Rand from one individual donor. And this has been created to create more transparency and accountability between parties and voters. And I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And this comes off the back of a Concord case, where the Concord said there has to be transparency. So the act was forced on Parliament. The parties all hated the fact that they had to do this. And then they had to come up with an act. Now, this doesn't mean it meets what the Concord actually wanted. So you can literally go to the Concord and say, no, these people did not do what we wanted. But what happened was they said 100,000 Rand is the threshold by which you must inform the public. Not the IEC knows of every donation the political parties get. Okay?
Even unrepresented.
Even unrepresented. So they have to be audited every year. But the big parties, the 18 parties in Parliament at the moment, they have to actually make submissions if they get a donation over 100,000 Rand, say who the person is that donated it, so we, the public, can go and scrutinize it and actually say, I wonder if this person is actually calling the shots and saying what policy needs to be enacted. And this is the concern now. So the parties are basically up in arms, okay? Like almost protesting.
No, I can understand because they're eating less. They have to make
Yeah,
those
suffering.
payments.
It's horrible. The ANC can't
awful.
pay salaries. The DA can't pay salaries. They're all suffering.
I would love to know in the comments, how much do you think a national political party needs to run their operations nationwide, considering in an ideal situation that party would have a foothold in all municipalities across the country? There are over 4,000 wards in the country. There are over 260 municipalities in the country. Just those of you who are involved in business, corporates, wherever, how much do you think a party needs to run basic operations? So
I just want to mention one important thing
Yep.
before you get started on the article. Because the article is the crux and we won't keep you for very long. So we're trying to condense this. To give for those of you that aren't interested in politics or don't understand how political parties are funded, you, the taxpayer, are paying them money every single month.
besides
The donation. So let's just make that disclaimer. They are getting your taxpayers' money, and other places in the world don't do this. South Africa is a unique situation where the parties decided, because they can pass the laws, that parties should get money from taxpayers that don't even support them.
I say that we should completely obliterate tax funding to political parties,
There
and we
should
should
be none.
increase the transparency and accountability with the Political
Exactly.
Party Funding Act, not lessen it.
That's our stance.
Yeah.
But maybe you feel different.
We
You can
should
tell us in the
financially
comments.
throttle political parties
Yes.
because they should be getting in via crowdfunding in a sense.
Absolutely.
So the voter believes in their vision, therefore the
Yeah.
voter will donate 10 Rand, 20 Rand, and then you have enough people to then eventually get into government, but
It'll
it's
be
not like that now.
It'll be way more of a democracy
It will
if
be-
that is the case.
It will be democratic.
Yeah.
Democracy will be democratized.
Yes.
So the article it's very long. I encourage everyone to please read it. We'll only highlight some snippets in
And
it.
we'll give you a link in the comments, and then if you go to our Telegram channel, the link is in the description below this video. Then you can go and read the full article there.
So the article's threshold must be much higher. Political parties want more donations, less transparency. The threshold must be higher in which you have to declare. So right now it's 100,000. They want to make it much higher. Different parties say different things. Political parties want to raise more money from donors and require less transparency about who those donors are. Who thinks that's a good idea?
Well, since it has come in, their money is dried up because
Yeah.
the people have taken flack for it because it's Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer doing most of the donations. So it looks like the Oppenheimer family is running the political scene in South Africa, and it's probably correct.
And we'll break it down later.
Yeah.
This is the general drift of political party submissions on a resolution to empower the president to set the upper limit for the donor funds of a party or independent candidate may receive per annum from a single donor, and the threshold, the amount from which parties and independent candidates must declare donations.
So they don't want to declare donations.
They say 100,000. So EFF's
Yeah.
been quite vocal here. Let's see, where can
But
we
they
go?
keep on claiming that they are crowdfunded. So what's the problem here?
According to this presentation, the EFF proposes setting the upper limit
At
at
100
100 million per annum to support operational electoral costs of political parties. The upper limit per donor is now 15 million. He wants to create...
They must have some rich people
Yeah.
willing to donate to them.
And the EFF also proposes raising the disclosure threshold to 1 million instead of 100,000. So if you donate under a million, you don't have to declare it.
999,000.
You don't have to declare it. If it's
Nothing.
1 million or more, then you do have to declare it. That's what they're proposing. To protect, so this is so clever, to protect smaller parties and their funders from victimization, isolation, and undue scrutiny in South Africa's polarized environment. You know, I am a leader of a small, unrepresented political party, and I do not agree with him. I want there to be more strict measures. I believe in freedom of the individual person, citizen. I believe in regulating political parties, absolutely, and creating more barriers so that it's more democratized, like you
Yeah.
said. So I think that's terrible. This is the EFF is the only party that opposed the Political Party Funding Act when it was before the Fifth Parliament.
But they claim, they've many times not made declarations and claim that they are funded from the ground. So why
Yeah.
is this even an issue?
I love this. The ANC claims the limit has crippled the ability of parties to adequately fulfill their constitutional obligations of deepening multi-party democracy.
But they want to put thresholds on parties coming into parliament. So this is an absolute
No,
lie.
listen, this is so exciting. I love how leech and treacherous, they're such leeches. Parties, all of them. I mean, these are just the ones being vocal. The upper limit of 15 million rand did not take into account what is required to run political parties with extensive networks of structures in every ward of the country.
feeding at the trough.
As well as the obligations on policy development and monitoring, communications and public relations, citizen education and campaigns, which are required to ensure engaged citizenry. So they're trying to say our democracy is not going to be a democracy if they don't have money to go out
They
there.
don't do any of these things in any case.
It's terrible. The state of our political system is insane, and this is why we need to change it. And there is the electoral reform panel,
We will cover that tomorrow.
which we'll cover tomorrow. And I think that parties need to be held even more transparent. I believe in financially strangling the political parties that are in power right now, because any new party that comes into the system stands no chance against the giant oligarchs that is politics
So,
in South
and the
Africa.
18 political parties that are in parliament now all made submissions because they want to control the system. And we'll discuss it tomorrow.
I'm gonna just a few more things, one or two more things before we close. An interesting new phenomenon in 2024 was that a few rich donors allegedly offered any party that challenged the governing party 15 million donation for their campaign, a stunt that ensured that about 50 parties stood for elections, and 50 parties on the ballot is actually not a lot. So we'll discuss other nuances that are going to be introduced into the system in the future by the current people in power. But so many of them had beautiful posters and no members. Contrast this with the four major parties that struggled to pin posters and reach voters due to a shortfall in funding. I did not see any shortfall of posters.
There was no shortfall. There were posters everywhere. It was such eye pollution.
It was eye pollution.
Yes,
We
absolutely.
should pass a bylaw on that. The IFP wants the disclosure threshold to be 250,000 rand, so a little bit more than double of what it currently is.
And then the limit to 25 million instead of 15.
Yeah. And then the IFP has declared just under 60 million rand that they've received in donations. Wow.
Fifth most donations. Oppenheimer
wow.
started funding them.
So interesting they
All the
actually say...
GNU parties, eh?
According to My Vote Counts, now My Vote Counts wants to maintain the threshold, if not strengthen the thresholds, increase the threshold so that it's more difficult for parties to just get private funding. My Vote Counts says here that 51% of all parties' donations came from members of the Oppenheimer family and 41.2% from Martin Marshall, one single individual. So if you include that, that is the bulk. That is over 90% of all donations coming from two families, which is very, very interesting.
You should tell us what you think that means. When most of the funding comes from Martin Marshall and the Oppenheimer family. What does it mean for politics in the country? And this is obviously the concern, is that big families can control political parties, their interests, they can control how the country is run. And do we really then have a democracy? Do elections actually mean something? And I think a lot of you will have strong opinions on that. Leave it in the comments below.
I'm with My Vote Counts here and wanting to make sure that the threshold is actually lowered. So less than 100,000 parties will be declaring it. I think that's fantastic. So there's a committee that is meeting.
You have to do it anyway, right?
Yeah, well, auditing is necessary,
Yes.
so why not? The committee is going to schedule its first meeting early February 2025 to receive the report and consider the draft motion. And it will also formally write to the National Assembly Speaker, Toko Didiza, to update her. So I find this very important.
This might be taken to the Concord again
I
to say
hope
these
so.
people are absolutely schneeing your ruling to begin with.
Yeah, so I think let's get talking. Those of you who have Twitter, Facebook, or whatever you
Yeah,
do your
talk
social
about
medias
this.
on, let's talk about it. Talk about it around the bride. Talk about it a lot because, like I said in the beginning, there's very few things as vile in South Africa as political parties, especially those in power currently. And they need to be held to account. We can't let them become more powerful than they currently are. They are the obstacle to South Africa's progress.
And one of the biggest things that we can do to make parties irrelevant in this whole gang system is to actually elect, for instance, our president directly. Vote for a person and hold them accountable, and being able to remove them if they're not doing their jobs properly. We can do that with all the party positions where you now have to vote for a party in future. We can change that to you electing the person, more accountability. And the electoral reform panel is busy with that. We'll discuss that tomorrow in our video. Thanks so much for joining us. Please like this video. Share this with your friends and family. Make this a talking point, Lauren. I think that's super important.
It has to become a talking point. We're so very much focused on just what we can see in front of us. But how the political system works impacts our lives so deeply, impacts the growth of, or the lack of growth of the economy. It's so important that we reform our electoral system, and it starts with knowledge, it starts with understanding how the political system works, and of course, articles like this, where parties are basically begging to make it easier for private donors to fund them so that they can continue their gangster-like operations in this country when it doesn't benefit you or me one bit. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Should parties have it easy, or should there be more regulation with regards to how parties receive private funding?
Thank you so much for watching. See you in the video tomorrow.